Good afternoon and welcome to News Aplenty. I'm your host Sam and this is my co-host Bailey. We would like to welcome you to our very first show here in the Agora at La Trobe University. It's so good to be here. So Bailey, how are you? How was your weekend?
I'm doing well, Sam. I was looking after myself this weekend, refreshing myself for a big show today. It's going to be lots of fun, I'm sure. But one thing I did notice, as I'm sure everyone else did, Buddy Franklin's 1000th goal Friday night, watched it from the couch and just in absolute awe of all these 20,000 friends running onto the ground. It was just amazing subplots have emerged from it, and it's just been such a once-in-a-lifetime moment. Where were you for it, Sam?
I was the same, but I was actually out watching it. And when it happened, people on the tables, drinks were going everywhere. It was great. I actually couldn't believe how many people went on the ground. I think there'll be a few COVID cases in Sydney.
A few COVID cases, grass clippings need replacing, balls handed back. It's been great. And then our friend Charlie will have more on it in sport.
Yeah, so what do we have on the show today, Bailey?
We have heaps on the show today, Sam. For starts, we're going to be delving into NATO and its allies and how our very own La Trobe students are coping being back on campus from home and abroad. Our friend Charlie has got a loaded sports segment to go through later on in the show, and our very own Taylor Collins has been out and about here in the Agora in the middle of La Trobe University. I don't know what he's been up to. He's been asking our students all sorts of questions, and you don't want to miss it. It should be good. But first, we'll move on to our news headlines.
Since Russia declared war on Ukraine, one of the cities, Lviv, was considered a safe zone, but Russian airstrikes were sent to an oil depot and defence facilities in the city. Many residents did not take the sirens seriously, alerting of the attack, but minutes after they were fleeing to find shelter.
US President Joe Biden made an impassioned speech in Poland's capital, Warsaw, labelling his Russian counterpart as a butcher and a man who cannot remain in power. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov later said that the matter was not for Biden to comment on, while the White House has scaled back on Biden's comments. Just kilometres from the Ukraine border, Biden has been visiting Warsaw since Friday to visit Ukrainian refugees who have been forced to flee the country due to the ongoing war.
A man has sadly died this morning after being caught in floodwaters near Toowoomba. Parts of northern New South Wales and southeast Queensland who were devastated by the floods recently have been warned of more rain. In the coming weeks, rainfall of 10 to 40 millimetres is expected, but up to 150 millimetres is possible. Acting New South Wales Premier Paul Toole said this news would be tough for those communities, but assures them that they will stand by their side once it's over.
Treasurer Josh Frydenberg has indicated that motorists will be given relief with fuel prices under a package of cost of living measures in the announcement of tomorrow's federal budget. The proposed measures will look to save motorists $2.50 when filling up a 50-litre vehicle. The budget is also expected to include a one-off payment to the 4.6 million Australians on welfare and income support.
The 94th Oscars have been overshadowed today after a dramatic altercation between Will Smith and Chris Rock. Smith walked onto stage and appeared to strike Rock after the comedian, who was on stage to present an award, referenced Smith's wife, Jada Pinkett Smith, during his presentation set-up speech.
I'm out here. Richard. Oh, wow. Wow.
Smith took the award for the win for the Best Actor award shortly after. Greg Fraser won Australia's first Oscar, but for Best Cinematography award for June. Jessica Chastain wins Best Actress, The Eyes of Tammy Faye.
A toxicology test has indicated the presence of drugs in the body of late Foo Fighters drummer Taylor Hawkins. The test carried out by Colombian authorities revealed that 10 substances, including marijuana, antidepressants, and opioids, were present. Hawkins passed away unexpectedly on Friday afternoon at age 50.
New hope for Australians diagnosed with cystic fibrosis, as a new life-changing treatment will be available for people 12 years and older. The new drug, Trikafta, which has been added to the Pharmaceutical Benefits Scheme, will be available from the 1st of April. Before it was added to the PBS, Australians would pay more than $250,000 a year. Now, it will only cost $42.50 per script or $6.80 with a concession card.
Fantastic. And Tim Zhu has overcome illness and a first-round knockdown to win his much anticipated first fight in the US over American Terrell Gausha. In the process, Zhu kept his undefeated 21-0 record intact and his dream of a title fight alive.
Now on to our lead story. Russia's conflict with Ukraine is entering its first month since the invasion began. Edie takes a closer look at NATO's role and how they are assisting Ukraine during this humanitarian crisis.
In the last month since the conflict began, you might have heard the term NATO. But what exactly is NATO? And what does it have to do with what's happening in Ukraine? NATO stands for the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, which is an intergovernmental military alliance between 30 countries and was established in 1949.
Every stage of NATO expansion has been encouraged by Russia's aggression.
The purpose of NATO is to safeguard its allies' freedom and security by political and military means. What this means is each member of NATO has agreed to support other members if their country or territory comes under attack. If one country that is a part of the agreement gets attacked, NATO sees this as an attack on all NATO countries. With NATO countries and other allies putting sanctions on Russia, you must be thinking that Ukraine is part of NATO. However, it's a bit more complicated than that. NATO and Ukraine have had relations dating back to 1992, even applying to join NATO in 2008. However, being unsuccessful due to a number of reasons. For a nation to join NATO, they must meet several political, social and military criteria, as well as get a unanimous consent from all current NATO members. Ukraine has a history of economic and political corruption, which doesn't align with NATO's membership criteria. Another factor is that Ukraine's military practices aren't up to the standard that NATO requires for membership. NATO also doesn't allow countries with ongoing territorial disputes to join the alliance.
Since the mid-1990s has been Russian aggression. 1994, under President Yeltsin, Russia devastated Chechnya. The capital of Chechnya was a significant European city. It was effectively leveled to the ground in scenes that are very reminiscent of what we've seen more recently in Mariupol.
NATO's actions are defensive, designed not to provoke a conflict, but to prevent a conflict. The alliance has a responsibility to ensure this war does not escalate and spread beyond Ukraine, which would be even more devastating.
In the aftermath of the annexation of Crimea in 2014 and Russia's instigation of a proxy war in southeast Ukraine, those events were a graphic demonstration for countries on the periphery of Russia that they are in danger, that this regime is unpredictable.
If NATO becomes directly involved with this conflict, this could lead to a full-fledged war in Europe involving many more countries and causing more suffering.
However, there is a very serious risk of escalation if Russia is clearly losing the war, and particularly if that is combined with problems for Putin at home.
Because of this, NATO and its allies have placed restrictive measures on Russia. Some of these restrictions are in the form of sanctions designed to have a heavy impact on Russia's political and economic climate for many years. NATO is helping to coordinate Ukraine's request for assistance and is supporting allies in the delivery of humanitarian and non-lethal aid. Individual NATO member countries are sending weapons, ammunition, medical supplies and other vital military equipment to Ukraine. They're also providing millions of euros of financial assistance to Ukraine. Many NATO countries and allies are also offering humanitarian aid to civilians by opening their borders to Ukrainian refugees, with some countries also waiving visa application processes.
Thank you, Edie, for your insights. Since borders have opened in late 2021, the return of international students have increased. However, Chinese students are returning at a slower pace compared to Indian and Nepalese students. Alyssa Sabele has the story.
Establishing in 1972, Australian and Chinese relations are based on economics, trade, and have a well-established community. Recent years have been strained due to concerns of Chinese political influence in Australia. who called for an independent inquiry into the origins of COVID-19 pandemic, which led to a wave of trade restrictions stopping. Former ministers Malcolm Turnbull and Kevin Rudd spoke in a recent live broadcast for La Trobe Asia regarding China's belligerent relationship with Australia as tensions continue to rise.
According to Lowy Institute polling last year, 94% of Australians want the government to reduce its economic dependence on China.
World leaders have previously criticised China on their Communist Party policies and the human rights violations. However, Australia has hoped to improve its current tensions with China. One of the challenging circumstances for Australia was the international education that shrunk since borders closed. Last January, the government announced that they will offer a visa-free refund to international students to fill the COVID workers shortage.
What we're doing is we will be rebating the visa application fees from all those who arrive today and going forward for students over the next 8 weeks, and that is a fee of some $630. And there are around 150,000 students who have visas, who we are encouraging to come back, to be there for the start of their university or college year. And that is a thank you to them for coming back and continuing to choose Australia. But we also want them to come here and be able to be filling some of these critical workforce shortages, particularly those who are working and being trained in healthcare, aged care, those types of sectors. That will be incredibly helpful.
Since borders opened in mid-December 2021, Australia has seen an increase in the numbers of students from India and Nepal the most. By comparison, Chinese international students have not returned to Australia as quickly. We spoke to Peter Hurley from the Mitchell Institute, who has the facts.
I think it's going to take some time for those numbers with which, to come back to previous, pre-pandemic levels. I think the reason why it's taking some time is it's easy to forget just how much of a shock happened over the past 2 years. Borders were closed. It was extremely difficult for international students, or anyone for that matter, to get across borders. And it's going to take some time for those effects to kind of work their way through the system.
He went on how Chinese international students are returning at a slower pace since borders open, and how the Australian labour market affects their return.
There has been an increase in the number of international students. So there were about 250,000 international students in December last year inside Australia, and that's gone up by about 80,000 since borders largely opened in mid-December. But to give you an idea of the size of it, I mean, there were about 600,000 international students in Australia before the pandemic. So there's still a huge decline.
We asked Chinese international students on their perspective about this change, and here's what they had to say.
My course is very practical, so many face-to-face classes is very necessary. So if I didn't back here in 2020, I think I will stay in China and study another course or something. Yeah, definitely it's harder for international students because our tuition fee is already very high, and also the daily living, those costs are very high as well compared to China. It's quite hard.
Alyssa Sabele reporting for the news.
Thanks for that, Alyssa. It's great to see the international students slowly making their way back to school. With semester 1 well underway, it is great to finally see La Trobe University open its doors to students again. However, for some, the idea of returning to campus isn't a plausible option. Stephen Zoyce explains why.
As students slowly start returning to campus for semester 1 classes, there is no doubt that being back at university brings joy, excitement, fulfillment and stability to people's lives. However, with the ever-present threat of COVID-19 in Victoria, some students are not as keen to return to normal university life just yet. Kate Holt-Zaffer is a student at La Trobe University and is currently studying a Bachelor of Wildlife and Conservation Biology. And although she believes that being back on campus is the way to go, there are still some uncertainties about returning to face-to-face learning.
But I guess there is that worry when you go into the classroom, whether or not you need to wear a mask, and like not knowing if you're going to be safe going into a classroom. I will be travelling back and forth between home and Melbourne, so I don't really want to be that person that gets it and takes it home. just having that worry of getting it. Also living by myself down here, not having that family around me for support. It's that little bit of doubt going into classrooms.
Along with the added risks of health and safety on campus, the stress and pressures of academic results on students also plays a part. The constant transition between online and face-to-face learning can also be difficult to combat. La Trobe University academic Claire Knowles has spearheaded a study plan program to assist students who are struggling to cope with that said transition.
We're still here providing the same service that we've always provided. We still do study plans for students who are struggling. And I think the university has, the university doesn't always get it right, but I think what they've really got right is this ability for most students in most courses to choose whether they study face-to-face or online. So it just takes away a lot of anxiety, because there are still a lot of students who are anxious about coming back to campus for a variety of reasons. And I think still being able to study online is great for those students.
With COVID-19 cases still soaring across the state, clinical psychologist Glenn Hosking understands the fears of those students who are sceptical of returning to university, but offers one simple piece of advice.
Yeah, so one of the big things that people are nervous about coming to campus is to give yourself time, to appreciate that because a lot of the world and our lives has been online over the past 2 years, that it might be something that we struggle with. It likely will be something that is uncomfortable. What we normally find in these kinds of situations, that with time, we all become much more comfortable with reintegrating back into the world. And what most people are likely to find is exactly that.
This has been Stephen Zurst reporting for News Aplenty.
Thank you, Stephen. Now, we're all students here, and I'm sure a lot of us have enjoyed being back around each other, and I think everyone in this room has enjoyed being back on campus, except one, of course. Sam, what prefers living off a screen, so why is that?
I think the story just before summed it up perfectly. I've been one of the people that have been online for the past 2 years, as I'm sure a lot of people have, but I think that I've just gotten so used to it, being at home. I just prefer it. I think I got a lot more done. But the social aspect has been great, being able to come inside. But for me personally, I think, I prefer it online.
Well, we'll see ourselves out then. Now, we'll be moving on to sport now, and with Charlie, and it was an exciting week in footy.
It certainly was, Bailey. Thank you. We have plenty of sport news to cover this afternoon. The main talking point coming out of the second round of the AFL season, headlined on Friday night by Sydney Swans' very own Lance Buddy Franklin, becoming the sixth player in VFL AFL history to kick 1,000 career goals, which was secured in Sydney's win over Geelong. This came after scoring his fourth goal for the match en route for Sydney, securing a 30-point victory over the Cats, making it a strong start for the Swannies with a 2-0 start. 6 sides remain unbeaten after 2 rounds, including 3 teams, all under new coaches from Collingwood, Carlton and Hawthorn, claiming scalps over the weekend. The biggest boil-over came from the Hawks, defeating last year's preliminary finalists Port Adelaide by 64 points away from home. In addition to the AFL, round 3 of the NRL season has come to a conclusion, with the reigning premiers, Penrith Panthers, starting where they finished off from last season, as they remain the sole unbeaten side thus far. To tennis now. Former world number 1 Victoria Azarenka has stormed out unexpectedly from her third round clash in the Miami Open against 16-year-old Czech qualifier Linda Fruhvirtova. The Belarusian star was ranked 12th heading into the game, but from the outset, she was never in the contest. The teenager opened with a 6-2 3-love lead before the 32-year-old stormed out of the venue unexpectedly. Back to footy now, and breaking news this morning, Sydney Swans fan Alex Wheeler, who held Lance Franklin's match ball that he kicked his 1,000th goal with, had it returned to the man himself at the SCG. In exchange, Wheeler was invited to the ground for a meet and greet session with a 4-time All-Australian and included a shirt, boots, a football, all signed by Lance Franklin, a club voucher, and a 5-year club membership. To more sports news now. In a few months' time, 30 countries will be battling it out for the pinnacle of women's lacrosse. Australia has just announced their squad of 20. Here's what a few of the girls from the squad had to say.
Lacrosse isn't a big sport in Australia, but what many people don't know are the green and gold are currently ranked 4th in the world for women's lacrosse. This year, the Aussie team are hoping for another chance to win gold and the opportunity to end their 17-year drought.
The Women's World Lacrosse Championships are just upon us, with the championship being held in Maryland, USA this year. With COVID delaying the games by a year, the selection for the Australian team has just been announced.
Only 20 players were selected for the upcoming tournament in July held at the US. I speak to 2 of them, in Sarah Smith and Beck Lane, on what the strengths and weaknesses are within the team.
Just sticking to our own team identity, which is really gritty lacrosse. We're tough, we're connected like Sarah says, and we just really work well with each other because we all have that collective goal. And we play a really Australian style of lacrosse, which is gritty, tough. We're ready for it.
Both Beck and Steph participate in their 4th World Cup this year in July. We asked a pair what's different about this current team compared to the other teams they've played with along their journey.
You know, we were both part of the last Senior World Cup, and unfortunately that Senior World Cup was the first Australian senior team to not medal. Coming into this campaign, a lot of us just really have that really strong drive to, you know, prove a point and prove that Australian lacrosse is a force to be reckoned with.
This campaign's been a lot different, but like Beck just said, we've got something to prove.
In addition, we asked the head coach Trish Adams is looking forward to coaching the women's lacrosse side in the upcoming World Cup in the US. We talked to her about the team struggles during COVID, what's unique in coaching this side, and the strengths within that can really catapult them to taking out the World Cup.
Of coaching over video and having video applications to stay connected to training groups, etc., which has been fantastic. I think in the end it's been something that's really rewarding and has been something that we can check back in on and refer to regularly. I think we've got some girls that haven't been involved in a high performance campaign before, so it's amazing to see them really grow throughout. And one of our biggest strengths, I think, is going to be our ability to face adversity. I think the girls have learned to be so resilient throughout this campaign. They've been incredible in terms of staying connected, regardless of where they are in the country or in the world. And I think that's something that will hold us in really good stead come competition.
With the girls flying off in June, preparations for the upcoming World Cup are only going to ramp up from here on in. This is Charlie Roberts signing off for News Aplenty.
That was a fantastic storyline to cover. Sam, a question to you. What will the success of Australian lacrosse do to sport in general within this nation?
Do you play lacrosse there?
Yes, I do. And I was going to say, Charlie, great throw there at the end. You had the technique right. Bit of work, but it was good. But yes.
Like my lacrosse.
No, yes, have a big passion for lacrosse. I used to play it as well. So I think the success of this tournament, if we at least medal, would be great. The last time we won was in 2005, the gold medal. And back then, social media, internet wasn't as big. So I feel like for this year, if that was to happen, especially gold or even medal, it would be great. It will be put through all social media and it will get the sport more recognised, especially in Australia. We're currently ranked 3rd at the moment or 4th. So it would be great to see everyone watch us on the screen because it's a really fast-paced sport that everyone will love. And hopefully we'll be in the Olympics in 2024. So it'll be great to see.
An Olympic event. That's exciting.
Yeah.
Lacrosse going places, guys. Let's tune in.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you, Charlie, for that. Really appreciate the sports segment. Now, moving on, Nick and Taylor were out and about on campus during the week to play a news headline game called Slander or Candor with our La Trobe students. Let's see how they went.
Today on Slender or Candor, we find out who's been watching the news and who's a little confused. Now we're going to get into a little bit of a game, okay? The game is called Slander or Candor, and it's where I'll say to you two news headlines. One of them's slander, one of them's candor. You tell me which one is which, okay? Candor means it's true, yeah, and slander means it's untrue. All right, a 2021 study of Melburnians found that only 10% of people brush their teeth twice a day. And there is more than double the amount of sheep in Victoria than there are humans. Which one is slander? Which one is candor?
Slander is the sheep.
It has to be a toothbrush one, right? Like brushing their teeth.
Second one might
The
be
second one is
slander.
First one.
First
I
one's
don't
probably
know.
real.
I know about Caucasians, but
Yeah, we brush ours 3 times probably. But
First one's probably
I think
candor.
first one's real and then the second one's fake.
I'm gonna say the sheep one. I don't know why. I just have a feeling, or am I wrong?
You're wrong. Yeah, so the the brushing the teeth one was wrong.
No way.
The first one's fake, actually. Yeah. I don't know. I just made that completely up. Scientists recently discovered that there were rainforests in Antarctica 90 million years ago. Or during their weeknight opinion talk show last week, a Sky News commentator said something positive and unbiased about Victorian Premier Daniel Andrews.
The second one.
Still the first.
I'm going to have to say... Wait, can you repeat the first one again?
Yeah, so scientists recently discovered that there were rainforests in Antarctica over 90 million years ago.
Number 1 is slander.
First one's false?
No, that is true. That is true.
Yeah.
Still the... no, sorry. It was the second. No. Sky News would never say something positive about...
Oh, it was so specific.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe there was something good.
No, mate, nothing. Disney have actually announced they're in pre-production for a High School Musical Australian spin-off called TAFE the Musical, which is set to be partially filmed at La Trobe, actually. Or in Victoria, singing an obscene song or ballad in a public space can attract a fine of $4,000 or 6 months jail time.
I'm gonna say the second one's slander.
Which one's fake?
First one.
The first option.
Musical,
That
that's
is
cap.
slander.
That's cap.
Slander.
That's a lie. I didn't even need to hear your second one. That's a lie.
I won't even say the next one. Yeah, you're right.
TAFE the musical. What?
That's funny. I'd love to see that.
I would want to see that if it was real, but that's a cap.
Some funny accents in that.
I know. Probably some crazy accents.
Yeah, the first one is slander. They're not coming.
What?
Yes, correct. Correct, yes. Former US President Donald Trump was quoted during the week calling Russian President Vladimir Putin a malicious dictator and saying he condemned the actions of Putin to the highest degree. Or former US President Donald Trump was quoted during the week calling Russian President Vladimir Putin genius and savvy after Putin began his invasion of Ukraine.
Number 1 is slander.
I want to hope that the slander. I want to hope that the one. It's Donald Trump. What am I thinking? I'm going to assume. I'm going to say the second one slander.
Is the first one real?
I think the second.
So slander is the second one.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he wouldn't be rude to him, would he? Yeah, exactly. So it's true and then fake. Yeah.
Yeah, correct. The first one's slander. He called him genius and savvy.
I was hoping maybe I'd give him. No, I don't know why I even thought about giving him any chance. Anyway, yeah. No, that's really sad.
You'd hope so, but nah. Yeah. No, I was correct. Yeah, you wouldn't think, but it was. No, it's actually correct.
Oh no. I've not been keeping up with it.
Yeah, killed it.
That's all. Thank you very much for that.
That was a great segment. So, Bailey, how many did you get right there?
4 out of 5 ain't bad. I thought there would be more sheep than people, to be honest.
Oh, no, I got that one right, I think. I think that fact is from New Zealand. Pretty sure.
Well, where I come from, it's definitely, I think, country town, there are
Oh, yes.
3 times as more sheep than people.
Yeah, your best mates, are they?
They are.
Good to hear. All right, so Bailey, it's been an exciting first show. Can't wait to see what we have in store next week.
No, it's been real, Sam, and I'm looking forward to doing it all again.
And that's all for our program today. Follow us on Twitter at Upstart Magazine, Instagram at News Aplenty, and Facebook at Upstart Magazine to keep you updated on our show. Tune in next time to hear plenty of news from News Aplenty.